primary day voting is our top story tonight at 11. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sherry Jones.
And I'm Greg Adeline. As Election Day winds down, voters have cast their ballots and most of the results are in.
We start tonight with one of the most hotly contested races in our area, the battle for the 8th District U.S. House of Representatives seat, currently held by Mike Rogers.
Rogers chairs the House Intelligence Committee and won 7 terms, so it was a shock to many people when he announced that he would not run again. Emerald Morrow joins us live in a busy newsroom with the breakdown of the winners now vying for his seat. Emerald?
That's right, Greg and Sherry. The competition for Rogers' seat is strong and the race is only beginning. But tonight, voters exercised their civic duty, choosing the Democratic and Republican candidates they want to see on the ballot in November. For the Democrats, that race is between Eric Schertzing, Ken Darga, Susan Grettenberger, and Jeffrey Hank. Grettenberger and Schertzing are in a real nail-biter right now. With most votes counted, they're just a few hundred votes apart. Schertzing had a slight lead, and he wasn't available to speak with us, but we did speak with Grettenberger as numbers were still coming in, and she says she's cautiously optimistic about her chances right now.
I came out talking about the environment, education, about the economy, and about equality, and talking about really wanting to move the country in a direction and representing this district in a way that would really be fair and would represent all the people in the district.
And on the other side of the aisle, the Associated Press has called the race between Mike Bishop and Tom McMillan. Mike Bishop easily took home the win for the GOP. He comes into the race with a background full of political experience. He served in both the State House and the Senate and says he's looking forward to moving ahead with his platform.
The number one issue has to be jobs, the economy. That's the one thing I hear about anywhere I go. The second is the size and scope of government. It's just too big, and I hear that as well. And the last is debt. It's just too much debt in this country, 18 trillion in debt. It's out of control.
Now, the final winner will certainly have a big seat to fill, as Rogers has made an international name for himself as chair of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee. Back to you.
All right, Emerald, thanks. We now move on to results in the race to replace another longtime congressman, 4th District Representative Dave Camp.
He served in this position for the last 23 years now, but Camp announced earlier this year that he is not seeking re-election. 3 Republican candidates are vying for Camp's spot, including Peter Kenichi, Paul Mitchell, and John Molinar. Right now, Molinar is leading and will take on Democratic candidate Jeff Holmes for the spot. Holmes ran unopposed on the other side of the aisle.
Moving now to the 7th Congressional District, where sitting Congressman Tim Walberg is defending his seat against Republican challenger Douglas North. Congressman Walberg easily took home the primary win tonight, defeating North. And now Walberg will go on to face Democrat and former House member Pam Burns in November.
Moving to the state Senate now, where Senate Democratic leader Gretchen Whitmer is not running again because of term limits. So 3 Democrats are competing for her spot, with voters choosing between Curtis Hertel, Larry Hutchinson, and Harold Lehman Jr. The frontrunner of the Democratic Party so far, Curtis Hertel, currently in the lead by a wide margin. If the numbers hold, Hertel will face Republican Craig Whitehead in November.
We're celebrating a wonderful victory tonight. This is only a first step in the process. We still have to get through the general election, but I'm very heartened by the numbers tonight and appreciate the voters that have voted for me.
In the meantime, the biggest statewide ballot proposal in the primary asked voters to eliminate the small business personal property tax.
Let's take a look now at the results of Proposal 1. The Associated Press calling the race, and the tax has fallen. A yes vote in this case meant voters wanted to do away with the small business personal property tax. Supporters say ending the tax will create a separate fund to help first responders like police and fire officials, along with libraries and schools.
We turn now from a statewide proposal to one that focuses on a small area with a big controversy.
Yeah, after months of meetings, petitions, and waiting, people living in Blackman Township voted to drop township trustees' salaries after 4 members voted in more than $100,000 in raises. Voters overwhelmingly said no to the raises for the 3 township board positions, including Blackman Township treasurer and supervisor. 2 board members who voted in favor of the raises have since left their positions. Members of the Better Blackman group that organized those petitions, though, say that they were happy with the results, but less so with the voter turnout.
We would have liked more turnout, but we think that the people were motivated to come out and vote against these raises. They came out. I think we're going to see big margins. We're going to see each of those proposed salary increases fail, and that's exactly what we set out to do.
A pending recall petition for 2 other members of the board is also heading to the ballots in November.
A couple of big and important renewals in Ingham County tonight. Voters there asked to keep funding for the Capital Area Transportation Authority, or CATA, as well as the region's public library system. And the numbers are looking good for both. Alexandra Illich talked with the heads of both organizations tonight. She joins us now with their reactions. Alexandra?
Yes, Sherry, with all of the positive feedback coming in, it is safe to say that people like Sandy Dragu of CATA and Maureen Hurton of the Capital Area District Libraries were feeling very optimistic. Both parties have very high hopes and feel the residents have been very supportive with both of these projects to move forward. This millage will provide funding that is needed to keep the transportation system running. Here are the results right now. CATA is in the lead 16,000 to 5,000. CEO and Executive Director Sandy Dragu was very optimistic about this $14 million project. She said that usually when CATA has major projects, they will receive some phone calls from residents who are against it. But with this one, she said she didn't receive any negative feedback.
We're moving forward and we feel very good about that. So we feel that we can continue to have the good service that we do have and make it even better.
Capital Area District Libraries have been operating under the same millage rate since 2006. The current millage expired in December of 2013. This renewal will allow for all 13 branches of the Capital Area District Libraries to continue operating at the current rate of 1.56 mils for another 4 years. Here are the results right now. Currently, the district libraries are in the lead 16,000 to 4,000.
I mean, grateful for all the voters, grateful for all the people that brought us here today, the staff and the board and community volunteers and all our patrons who use our facilities. So I'm grateful to them for supporting us.
When I spoke with Maureen Hurton earlier, she said she wasn't too worried and was feeling very hopeful and optimistic about it. And although she said she didn't want to take anything for granted, she would have been surprised if the vote didn't pass. Back to you.
All right, Allie, thanks. Moving now to Jackson, where a controversial stormwater collection fee was struck down by the courts and went to the voters. A court ruled last year that the city needs to stop collecting the fee, which the court determined was actually a tax. It needs to be voted on by the people. Tonight, the voters spoke and voted against the tax. Jackson Mayor Jason Smith says that the vote puts the city in a tight spot.
We have to go back to the drawing board. We still have our stormwater ordinance in effect. So now we are going to have to require residences and businesses to be compliant without any method to help them be compliant.
Mayor Smith says the city is required to uphold certain federal environmental standards when it comes to the water runoff, and will have to find a way to do it with less money.
In the meantime, candidates in 2 races with very definite outcomes were able to relax during the primary tonight. Governor Rick Snyder and Democrat Mark Schauer ran unopposed for their parties, so the vote was more of a run-through today.
Yeah, the same goes for U.S. Senate candidate Gary Peters and Terry Lynn Land. Their battle is heating up, but today's vote was more of a formality because both are also running unopposed. So the dust is starting to settle on the primary season for campaign 2014, but still plenty to be gleaned from what we've seen today at the polls.
That's true, and our Francesca Amaker got the inside scoop from 6 News Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic on how the Tea Party played a role in this year's primaries and what low voter turnout means for the November ballot.
Well, I'm joined by Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic for 6 News. And Tim, we have a couple questions for you. Sure. Today's a big day with primary elections going on. I want to know the impact of the Tea Party on elections.
Well, this is an important issue. The Tea Party is not on the ballot per se, but at the end of this day, we will know whether the Tea Party has any oomph in Michigan politically or not. There are about 14 legislative races where Tea Party folks are taking on incumbent sitting Republicans. Now, the establishment Republicans are pouring a ton of money into these races. The DeVos family, for example, 50,000 smackers into these races. Now, if the Tea Party comes up and wins 12 or 13 seats, that would be astronomical, and their power would go up accordingly. If they knock off 1 or 2 incumbents, not so much, and the Tea Party will be diminished. So a lot riding on the Tea Party this night as we look at the balloting.
Now, Tim, there's no primary for governor or the U.S. Senate. What does that mean?
Well, this is just the way the Democrats wanted it. If you remember 4 years ago, we had Verge Bernero. Remember him? You've heard his name,
I've
right?
heard. I know who that is.
Verge Bernero was on the ballot along with Andy Dillon. Here's what happened. The Democrats had to spend a boatload of money, and the two of them beat up each other in this contest. Now, there were also 5 candidates in the Republican primary. Rick Snyder emerged the winner there. The point is, Lon Johnson, the Democratic Party chair, said, we're not going to do that again. We're going to find one guy that we want to put on the ballot. That's Mark Schauer. And by doing that, the Democrats save money. Schauer comes out of this primary with no opposition. Nobody said anything bad about him at all. So he is teed up to take on the incumbent in November. And of course, the governor is the incumbent. Nobody would dare take him on.
Geez, Tim, thanks so much for all your wealth of knowledge on all of this political stuff. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you both. Certainly a lot to think about heading into the November ballot.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And as we march through campaign 2014, stay with 6 News because we're your election headquarters on air and online at WLNS.com.